What if I told you that in 1969, a 21-year-old black revolutionary sat at a table with Puerto Rican and Mexican organizers and built the most dangerous coalition America has ever seen? What if I told you Fred Hampton united the Black Panthers, Young Lords, and Brown Berets into a rainbow coalition so powerful that the FBI assassinated him in his sleep at 4:45 in the morning while his pregnant fiancée lay beside him? What if I told you that 2 years before, Fred, in the summer of 1967, a Chicano land rights fighter named Reies López Tijerina invited nearly every major Black Power organization to Albuquerque, New Mexico? SNCC was there. Black Panthers sent representatives. Brown Berets were forming. They sat together in conference rooms planning joint actions against police brutality, land theft, and the prison system that was swallowing both their communities whole. They didn't teach you this in school. They taught you that Black and Latino communities compete for resources. They taught you stereotypes, that Black people resent immigrants, that Latinos look down on Blackness. They fed you division on social media, in politics, in the streets, in every election cycle. But the truth, your grandparents fought side by side. They organized together. They bled together. They ran free breakfast programs feeding 10,000 children every single day. They opened health clinics in each other's neighborhoods. They marched against the Vietnam War, knowing that poor Black and brown bodies were being drafted and killed, while rich white kids got college deferments. And the system destroyed their unity, because a united Black and brown America is unstoppable. This is the story they buried. This is your stolen history of solidarity. And after you hear it, you'll never see racial politics the same way again. By the end of this video, you'll know the names and faces of the Black and brown revolutionaries who refused to be divided. You'll know about the 1967 Albuquerque Conference, where Reies Tijerina brought together Chicano, Black, and Native organizers to fight the same enemy: white supremacy and capitalism. You'll understand why today's political landscape pushes Black versus Latino narratives during every election cycle, every immigration debate, every fight over resources. You'll see how COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program, specifically targeted Black and brown alliances, how they infiltrated organizations, how they assassinated leaders, how they spread lies to turn communities against each other. This isn't ancient history. Fred Hampton was murdered in 1969. Your parents' lifetime, your grandparents' lifetime. The Young Lords operated into the 1970s. Reies Tijerina died in 2015, just 10 years ago. The people who built these coalitions are your elders. Some are still alive today, and the FBI agents who destroyed them. Some are still in government. Some retired with pensions. Some trained the next generation of agents who are watching movements right now. The tactics they used then, surveillance, infiltration, disinformation, are being used now on Black Lives Matter, immigrant rights groups, and every movement that unites people of color. This affects your life today. After this video, you'll understand why the Rainbow Coalition of 1969 was more dangerous to white supremacy than any single race movement. You'll understand why Reies Tijerina's 1967 land grant struggle connected directly to Black reparations. You'll understand why the FBI killed Fred Hampton specifically because he united Black, brown, and poor white communities. And you'll never fall for divide and conquer tactics again. If your grandmother ever told you that we're stronger together, she was talking about this. If your grandfather ever said, they want us fighting each other, so we won't fight them, he knew this history. This is your inheritance. Let's reclaim it. September 21st, 1926. Falls City, Texas. A baby boy is born to Mexican-American farm workers in a labor camp. His parents are migrant workers following crops across Texas, living in conditions that would make you weep. No running water. No electricity. Dirt floors. The kind of poverty that grinds people into dust. They name him Reies López Tijerina. His mother and father work fields that their ancestors once owned. Before 1848, before the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, before the United States stole half of Mexico's territory in a war of conquest and called it manifest destiny. Reies grows up knowing this. He grows up knowing that his family's poverty isn't natural. It's theft. Organized, legal government-sanctioned theft. He becomes a Pentecostal preacher in his 20s, traveling through the Southwest, preaching the gospel. But everywhere he goes, he sees the same thing. Chicano families living in poverty on land their grandfathers owned. White ranchers and corporations controlling millions of acres that were stolen through crooked courts and corrupt land deals. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed February 2nd, 1848, was supposed to protect Mexican land grants. The treaty promised that Mexicans living in the conquered territory would keep their property rights. But that was a lie. Over the next century, Anglo lawyers, judges, and land speculators used every trick in the book to steal those lands. Fake surveys, fraudulent claims, legal fees so high that families had to sell their land to pay lawyers. And when legal tricks didn't work, they used violence, lynchings, burnings, massacres. By the 1960s, millions of acres of land grants in New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, California, and Texas were in the hands of white ranchers and the federal government. And the descendants of the original owners were farm workers picking crops on land their great-grandparents had owned. Reies Tijerina saw this, and he couldn't stay silent. In 1963, he founded the Alianza Federal de Mercedes, the Federal Alliance of Land Grants. The mission was simple: reclaim the stolen land. Demand that the United States government honor the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Give back what was stolen. He traveled across New Mexico holding meetings in small towns, speaking in churches and community centers, telling people your poverty is not your fault. Your land was stolen, and we have the legal right to take it back. Thousands joined the Alianza. Families who had been told for generations that they were just poor Mexicans who didn't work hard enough. Now they were learning the truth. They weren't failures. They were victims of organized theft. Tijerina studied the old Spanish and Mexican land grants. He found the documents. He found the maps. He found the proof that millions of acres had been stolen through fraud. And he decided to take action. October 15, 1966, Reies Tijerina and 350 members of the Alianza occupied part of the Kit Carson National Forest in New Mexico. They set up camp on land that had been part of the San Joaquin del Rio de Chama land grant. They declared the area the Free City State of San Joaquin. They elected their own mayor. They issued their own laws. They told the federal government this land is ours under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and we're taking it back. Forest rangers showed up. Tijerina and his people arrested them. Yes, you heard that right. They arrested federal officers for trespassing on what they claimed was their sovereign land. The occupation lasted a week. The federal government eventually removed them, but the message was sent. Chicanos were no longer asking for their land. They were taking it. The authorities were furious. District Attorney Alfonso Sanchez in Rio Arriba County began cracking down on the Alianza, arresting members, charging them with illegal assembly, harassment, intimidation. Tijerina knew what was happening. The same playbook used against black civil rights organizers. Arrest the leaders, drain their resources with legal fees, tie them up in court, break the movement. But Reies Tijerina wasn't backing down. June 5, 1967, Tierra Amarilla, New Mexico, a small courthouse in a small town. Inside a grand jury is meeting to indict more Alianza members. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Reies Tijerina and 20 armed men storm the courthouse. They're carrying rifles and pistols. They're wearing cowboy hats and boots. They burst through the doors shouting, "Where is Alfonso Sanchez? Where is the district attorney?" They're looking for the DA who has been persecuting their people. They plan to arrest him, to put him on trial in their own court for violating their civil rights. But Alfonso Sanchez isn't there that day. He's in Santa Fe. Gunfire erupts. A deputy and a jailer are shot and wounded. Chaos. Screaming. Tijerina and his men grab 2 hostages and flee in a government vehicle. They disappear into the mountains of northern New Mexico. The response is massive. The governor of New Mexico calls out the National Guard. 500 law enforcement officers, state police, sheriff's deputies, FBI agents descend on Rio Arriba County. They bring tanks, helicopters, roadblocks. It's the largest manhunt in New Mexico history. They round up Chicano men and hold them in a sheep pen without charges. No warrants, no due process, just collective punishment against the entire community. For 2 days, Reies Tijerina evades capture. He's in the mountains, hiding, moving, and the whole country is watching. When he's finally arrested on June 10th, 1967, he doesn't look defeated. He looks defiant. He tells reporters, "We were trying to make a citizen's arrest of the district attorney for violating our constitutional rights." The trial becomes a spectacle. Tijerina defends himself in court. He's not a lawyer, but he studies the law. He cross-examines witnesses. He argues that the Alianza had the legal right under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo to reclaim their land. He argues that the courthouse raid was a justified act of resistance against government oppression, and incredibly, in December 1968, a jury acquits him of the most serious charges. The people of New Mexico, even some Anglos, saw what was happening. They saw a man fighting for justice, fighting against a system that had stolen everything from his people. But the authorities weren't done with him. They kept charging him, kept arresting him, kept dragging him into court. Over the next few years, Reies Tijerina would spend more than 2 years in federal prison on various charges. But before they locked him up for good, he did something that terrified the FBI even more than the courthouse raid. He built a coalition. Summer of 1967, just weeks after the Tierra Amarilla raid. Reies Tijerina is out on bail, and he's thinking bigger than just the land grant struggle. He's thinking about all oppressed people, Black people, Native Americans, poor whites, all fighting the same enemy. He organizes a conference in Albuquerque, the National Conference for New Politics. He invites representatives from nearly every major civil rights and liberation organization in the country. SNCC sends people. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the most radical of the Black civil rights organizations. Maria Varela, a Chicano organizer who worked with SNCC, is there. She introduces Tijerina to Black power leaders. Black Panther Party representatives are there. The party is just a year old, founded in Oakland in October 1966, but they're already becoming the most feared Black organization in America. And they're interested in what Tijerina is doing. Brown Berets organizers are there. The Chicano equivalent of the Black Panthers just forming in Los Angeles. Young militants tired of waiting for change. American Indian movement contacts are there. Native Americans who understand land theft better than anyone. And Reies Tijerina stands before this multiracial gathering, and he says something that the FBI will put in his file and monitor for the rest of his life. He says they stole our land with guns and treaties. They stole your labor with chains. We are the same enemy's victims. We need to fight together. Think about what he's saying. He's connecting the dots. The land stolen from Chicano and Native communities through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and hundreds of other broken treaties. The labor stolen from Black communities through slavery, and then Jim Crow sharecropping and convict leasing. The ongoing theft through redlining, urban renewal, mass incarceration. It's the same system, the same theft, different methods, but the same result. wealth extracted from black and brown communities and concentrated in white hands. Tijerina proposes joint actions, protests against police brutality that targets both black and Chicano communities, legal challenges to land theft and discrimination, mutual aid, shared resources. Some of the black organizers are skeptical at first. They've been burned before by allies who disappeared when things got hard. But they listen because they see the same fire in Tijerina that they have, the same refusal to beg for rights, the same willingness to fight. And seeds are planted. Over the next 2 years, those seeds will grow into the most dangerous coalition the United States government has ever faced. The Rainbow Coalition. But before we get to that, you need to understand who was watching all of this. The FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, director of the FBI, is obsessed with destroying what he calls black nationalist hate groups. He's terrified of a black messiah who could unify and radicalize Black America. And he's even more terrified of alliances between black-brown and other oppressed groups. In August 1967, just after Tijerina's conference, the FBI launches COINTELPRO Black Nationalist Hate Groups counterintelligence program. It's not investigation. It's not surveillance for prosecution. It's active sabotage, infiltration, psychological warfare, assassination. The stated goal in an FBI memo from 1968 is to prevent the coalition of militant black nationalist groups and to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the movement. They're watching Reies Tijerina. They're watching SNCC. They're watching the Black Panthers. And they're terrified of exactly what's about to happen. A 21-year-old is about to do what the FBI fears most. August 30th, 1948. Summit, Illinois, a suburb just outside Chicago. Frederick Allen Hampton is born to working-class black parents. His father works at the Argo Starch Company. His mother drives a bus. Solid, hard-working people. The kind of people who believed that if you worked hard, went to church, stayed out of trouble, you could build a decent life in America. Fred grows up in Maywood, a working-class suburb. He goes to Proviso East High School. He's a good student, a great athlete. He's popular, smart, charismatic, the kind of young man that teachers say is going places. But Fred Hampton is also growing up in the 1960s. He's growing up watching the civil rights movement on television. He sees the dogs and fire hoses in Birmingham. He sees Bloody Sunday on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. He sees Malcolm X speak truth with a power that makes his soul burn. And he sees that working hard and staying out of trouble isn't enough, because the system doesn't care how hard you work. It's designed to keep you down. In high school, Fred joins the NOACP Youth Council. He starts organizing. He's a natural. He can speak. He can organize. He can inspire. By the time he graduates in 1966, he's leading campaigns to integrate the public swimming pools in Maywood. He's leading protests against racist hiring practices. He's becoming dangerous. He enrolls at Triton Junior College to study pre-law. He wants to be a lawyer. He wants to use the law to fight for his people. But the more he learns about the law, the more he realizes the law is part of the problem. The law protects property. And black people have no property. The law has been used to enslave, segregate, and oppress black people since 1619. He starts reading more radical literature. He reads Frantz Fanon. He reads Mao. He reads Marx. He reads everything he can get his hands on. And he comes to a conclusion. The problem isn't bad laws. The problem is the system. Capitalism, white supremacy, imperialism. And you can't reform a system designed to exploit you. You have to overthrow it. In November 1968, Fred Hampton joins the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was founded in Oakland, California, in October 1960 by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. Their original focus was monitoring police in black neighborhoods. They would follow police with guns completely legal in California at the time, and observe arrests to prevent police brutality. But the Panthers quickly evolved into a revolutionary socialist organization. They had a 10-point program. They wanted land-bred housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. They wanted an end to police brutality, an end to capitalism, an end to the Vietnam War that was sending poor black men to die for a country that oppressed them. And they believed in armed self-defense. They said, black people have the right to defend themselves against racist violence, with guns if necessary. This terrified white America, and it terrified the FBI. By 1968, the Black Panther Party had chapters in cities across the country, and in November 1968, they opened a chapter in Chicago. Fred Hampton joined immediately. He was 20 years old. Within months, he became the chairman of the Illinois chapter. Why? Because he was brilliant. He could organize like nobody else. He could speak and make people believe that revolution was possible. He had a vision that went beyond Chicago, beyond black people, beyond anything the Panthers had done before. Fred Hampton looked around Chicago, and he saw something that most people missed. He saw that poor people were suffering regardless of race. Black people in the South Side and West Side, Puerto Ricans in Humboldt Park and Lincoln Park, Mexicans and Chicanos in Pilsen and Little Village, poor white Appalachians in Uptown who had migrated north for factory jobs that were disappearing. They were all being exploited by the same system. Slumlords charging high rent for rat-infested apartments, police brutalizing people in every poor neighborhood, hospitals refusing to treat people without insurance, schools that were overcrowded and underfunded, and they were all fighting each other instead of fighting the system. Street gangs, black gangs fighting Puerto Rican gangs, Puerto Rican gangs fighting white gangs, everyone fighting over scraps, while the rich got richer. Fred Hampton saw this, and he had an idea. What if we stopped fighting each other? What if we organized together? What if we built a coalition of all oppressed people? The FBI had nightmares about exactly this. In early 1969, Fred Hampton started reaching out. He started talking to gang leaders. He started negotiating truces. He went into the toughest neighborhoods in Chicago, and he sat down with young men who had been killing each other. And he said, "Look, the police kill more of us than we kill each other. The system is the enemy, not each other." And it worked. He negotiated a truce between some of the most violent gangs in Chicago: the conservative Vice Lords, the Black P. Stones, the Blackstone Rangers. Young men who had been enemies started working together. But Fred didn't stop there. June 1969. Fred Hampton meets Jose Cha-Cha Jimenez. Cha-Cha is the leader of the Young Lords organization, and this meeting is about to change everything. Jose Jimenez was born in 1948 in Caguas, Puerto Rico. His family moved to Chicago when he was a child, part of the great Puerto Rican migration to the mainland, looking for work and opportunity. They settled in Lincoln Park on the north side. Cha-Cha grew up poor. He grew up facing the same things Fred Hampton faced: police brutality, terrible schools, poverty, discrimination. And like a lot of young Puerto Rican men in Chicago, he joined a street gang. The Young Lords, originally just a street gang in the late 1950s, fighting turf wars, doing what gangs do. But in 1968, everything changed. April 1968. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated in Memphis. Chicago erupts. The West Side burns. The South Side explodes in rage and grief. The National Guard occupies the city. And Jose Jimenez watches this, and something shifts in him. He sees that black people aren't just angry about one man's death. They're angry about everything. Centuries of oppression. And they're fighting back, burning the system down. He starts reading. He reads about the Black Panther Party. He reads about the Brown Berets forming in Los Angeles. And he thinks, why are we fighting each other in the streets when we should be fighting the system? He transforms the Young Lords from a street gang into a political organization. He writes a 13-point program and platform modeled directly on the Black Panthers' 10-point program. The young lords now demand liberation for Puerto Rico, an end to police brutality, decent housing, education, health care, and justice for all oppressed people. They start wearing purple berets. They start organizing in the Puerto Rican community. They start running community programs, and they start getting attention from the police and the FBI. In June 1969, Fred Hampton reaches out to Cha-Cha Jimenez. They meet. Two young revolutionaries. One black, one Puerto Rican. Both 21 years old, both willing to die for their people. Fred says we're fighting the same enemy. Police kill Puerto Ricans just like they kill black people. Landlords exploit you like they exploit us. We should organize together. Cha-Cha agrees. They sign a pact. The Black Panther Party Illinois chapter and the Young Lords organization will work together. Share resources, defend each other, build programs together, march together, fight together. This is the beginning of the Rainbow Coalition. But Fred doesn't stop there. He reaches out to the Brown Berets, the Chicano organization. He reaches out to the Young Patriots organization, an organization of poor, white Appalachians in uptown Chicago. These are white people from the South who moved north and brought Confederate flags with them. And Fred Hampton sits down with them and says, "I don't care about your flag. I care about your poverty. You're poor. We're poor. The system exploits all of us. Let's fight it together." And they join the coalition. Think about what Fred Hampton just did. He united Black Panthers, Puerto Rican Young Lords, Chicano Brown Berets, and poor white Young Patriots. In 1969, in Chicago, the most segregated city in America, he built a multiracial coalition of poor and working-class people that cut across every racial line the system used to divide people. And then he put that coalition to work. The Rainbow Coalition starts running joint programs. The Black Panthers had already started free breakfast programs for children. They served breakfast every morning before school, in churches and community centers in black neighborhoods. The Young Lords start doing the same in Puerto Rican neighborhoods. They share resources. They share food. They share volunteers. By the end of 1969, the Rainbow Coalition is feeding over 10,000 children every single morning in Chicago. Free breakfast. Eggs, grits, toast, milk juice. Made by volunteers. Served with love. To kids who were going to school hungry because their parents were working 2 jobs and still couldn't afford enough food. The government wasn't feeding these kids. The Rainbow Coalition was. They opened free health clinics. The Black Panthers partner with the Medical Committee for Human Rights, a group of doctors and nurses who support the movement. They open a clinic in Lawndale on the west side. Free medical care, testing for sickle cell anemia, a disease that disproportionately affects black people and was being ignored by the medical establishment. The Young Lords open a clinic in Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx. When the New York chapter gets going, they run free legal aid clinics, helping people fight evictions, fighting police brutality cases, helping people understand their rights. They organize joint protests, multiracial marches against police brutality. Hundreds of people, black, brown, white, marching together through the streets of Chicago, chanting, demanding justice. And the police don't know what to do because this isn't supposed to happen. Poor people aren't supposed to unite across race. Fred Hampton is on fire. He's giving speeches nearly every night. He goes to churches, community centers, college campuses. And when he speaks, people listen. He says we're going to fight racism. Not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We say we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. He says, you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution. You can run a freedom fighter around the country, but you can't run freedom fighting around the country. You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. He's 21 years old, and he sounds like a prophet. The Black Panther Party national leadership notices. They promote him. He becomes deputy chairman of the National Party, the youngest person in national leadership. The FBI notices too, and they decide he has to die. The young lords don't wait for permission. They see what the Black Panthers are doing, and they run with it. Jose Jimenez and the Chicago Young Lords start organizing Puerto Rican neighborhoods with an intensity that shocks the city. They set up an office at 1455 West North Avenue in Humboldt Park. Purple berets everywhere. Young Puerto Rican men and women, many of them former gang members now reading revolutionary theory and organizing their community. They start a free breakfast program at the Armitage Avenue United Methodist Church. Every morning, volunteers cook for dozens of kids. Just like the Panthers, solidarity in action. But the Young Lords also do something uniquely their own. They focus on issues specific to the Puerto Rican community, like garbage collection. In 1969, the city of Chicago provides garbage collection to white neighborhoods twice a week, to black neighborhoods once a week, to Puerto Rican neighborhoods sometimes once a week. Sometimes not at all. Garbage piles up on street corners, rats everywhere, disease, children playing near rotting trash. The Young Lords complain to the city. Nothing happens. They complain again. Still nothing. So in August 1969, they take direct action. They pile garbage in the middle of major intersections in Lincoln Park and Humboldt Park. They block traffic. They set some of it on fire. The garbage offensive, they call it. The media goes crazy. The police come out in force. Arrests, beatings. But the Young Lords make their point, and the city starts picking up garbage more regularly in Puerto Rican neighborhoods. This is the kind of creative militant organizing that Fred Hampton loves. This is what solidarity looks like. Different communities facing different specific issues, but supporting each other's struggles. The Rainbow Coalition holds joint meetings every week. Panthers, Young Lords, Brown Berets, Young Patriots. They coordinate actions. They share intelligence about police movements. They warn each other about infiltrators. They build genuine relationships across racial lines that are supposed to be impossible in 1969 Chicago. And it's working. The coalition is growing. More people joining. More programs expanding. The free breakfast program is now in a dozen locations across the city. The health clinics are seeing hundreds of patients a week. But something else is happening too. The Young Lords in Chicago inspire Young Lords in New York City. In the summer of 1969, a group of young Puerto Ricans in New York, mostly in the Bronx and East Harlem, hear about what Cha-Cha Jimenez is doing in Chicago. They hear about the alliance with the Black Panthers. They hear about the programs, the militancy, the pride. And they decide to start their own Young Lords chapter. The New York Young Lords end up becoming even more famous than the Chicago chapter. They do their own garbage offensive in East Harlem in 1969. Same tactic. Pile garbage in the streets until the city pays attention. It works. In July 1970, the New York Young Lords do something extraordinary. They take over Lincoln Hospital in the South Bronx. They occupy it for 12 hours. Lincoln Hospital is a public hospital that serves mostly Black and Puerto Rican patients. And it's a disaster. Outdated equipment. Not enough doctors. Patients dying from neglect. The Young Lords demand better health care for their community. They bring doctors and nurses who support them. They bring patients who have been mistreated. They hold a press conference inside the occupied hospital. And the media covers it. The whole country watches young Puerto Ricans in purple berets demanding basic human rights. The police eventually remove them, but the point is made. And some reforms actually happen at Lincoln Hospital because of that action. The Young Lords also work closely with the Black Panthers in New York. When the Panther 21 are arrested in New York in 1969 on bogus conspiracy charges, the Young Lords rally to their defense. They raise money for bail. They attend court hearings. Solidarity. And when Attica prison erupts in September 1971, both the Black Panthers and the Young Lords send representatives to negotiate. We'll get to Attica in a minute, because what happened there proves everything Fred Hampton and Reies Tijerina believed about multiracial unity. But first we need to talk about what happened to Fred, because the FBI was watching all of this, and they were terrified. In May 1969, the FBI recruits a man named William O'Neill. He's a young black man, a petty criminal. He's been arrested for car theft and impersonating a federal officer. He's facing serious prison time. The FBI offers him a deal. Work for us. Infiltrate the Black Panther Party. Give us information, and we'll make your charges disappear. Plus, we'll pay you. William O'Neill agrees. He joins the Black Panther Party Illinois chapter, and because he's smart and capable, he rises quickly. He becomes Fred Hampton's bodyguard, Fred's head of security, the person responsible for protecting Fred's life. Think about that. The FBI put their informant in charge of protecting the man they wanted dead. Over the next several months, O'Neill feeds the FBI everything: meeting locations, names of members, internal discussions, security procedures. He's paid hundreds of dollars good money in 1969 for his betrayal. And in November 1969, the FBI decides it's time. They want Fred Hampton dead. But they can't just shoot him in the street. That would be too obvious. They need it to look like the Panthers started it, like it was self-defense. So they plan a raid. O'Neill provides the FBI with detailed information. He draws a floor plan of Fred Hampton's apartment at 2337 West Monroe Street on the west side of Chicago. He marks where Fred sleeps, where other Panthers sleep, where the weapons are kept. And then on the night of December 3rd, 1969, William O'Neill does something unforgivable. He cooks dinner for Fred Hampton and the other Panthers in the apartment, and he puts a drug in Fred's drink. Secobarbital, a powerful sedative, enough to knock someone unconscious. Fred drinks it. He doesn't know. Why would he suspect his own bodyguard? That night, Fred goes to bed early. He's teaching a political education class the next morning. He lies down next to his fiancée, Deborah Johnson. She's 9 months pregnant with their son. She'll give birth to Fred Hampton Jr. just weeks later. Fred falls into a deep, drugged sleep. At 4:45 in the morning on December 4th, 1969, 14 armed police officers from the Chicago Police Department and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office surround the apartment at 2337 West Monroe Street. They have a search warrant. They claim they're looking for illegal weapons. But that's a lie. This is an assassination. They knock on the door. Mark Clark, a Panther from the Peoria chapter who's visiting Chicago, is sitting in the front room with a shotgun across his lap. He's on security duty. The police don't wait for anyone to answer. They open fire through the door. The first bullets hit Mark Clark. He's killed instantly. His finger reflexively pulls the trigger of his shotgun as he dies. That one shot is the only shot fired by anyone in the apartment. The police will later claim the Panthers shot first. That's a lie. Mark Clark's death reflex fired that single shot. The police pump 90 to 99 bullets into that apartment in the next few minutes. 99 bullets. Into an apartment where people are sleeping. They shoot through walls, through doors, through furniture. The sound is deafening. Screaming. Chaos. Terror. Deborah Johnson, 9 months pregnant, rolls out of bed. She tries to wake Fred. He doesn't move. The drugs have him completely unconscious. The police storm through the apartment. They shoot everyone they see. Survivors will later testify that the police were shouting, "This is for Daley. This is for the mayor," executing a hit ordered from the top. They reach the bedroom where Fred Hampton is sleeping. A police officer puts a gun to Fred's head and fires twice. Fred Hampton is executed in his bed. He never wakes up. He's 21 years old. The police shoot Deborah Johnson in the leg. Miraculously, she survives. The baby survives. 4 other Panthers in the apartment are shot and wounded, but they survive. When the shooting stops, the police ransage through the apartment. They plant evidence. They arrange weapons. They prepare the scene for the lies they're about to tell. Within hours, the Chicago Police Department holds a press conference. They claim the Panthers opened fire on police. They claim it was a fierce gun battle. They claim the police barely escaped with their lives. The Chicago Tribune runs the police version. The headline reads, "Panther Lair Raided." The story describes a dangerous shootout initiated by the Panthers. But there's a problem. Too many witnesses. The surviving Panthers tell a different story. Community members demand an investigation. Journalists start asking questions. A lawyer named Flint Taylor gets involved. The People's Law Office starts investigating. And what they find is horrifying. The physical evidence proves the police lied about everything. Ballistics experts examine the apartment. They find 99 bullet holes. 98 fired by police into the apartment. 1 fired out of the apartment, the reflexive shot from Mark Clark, as he died. There was no gun battle. There was a massacre. Flint Taylor and his team find the floor plan that William O'Neill drew for the FBI. They find FBI memos discussing neutralizing Fred Hampton. They find evidence that O'Neill drugged Fred the night before the raid. The surviving Panthers file a federal civil rights lawsuit. It takes 13 years, but in 1982, a federal court rules that the FBI and Chicago police conspired to assassinate Fred Hampton. The government settles for $1.85 million. But Fred is still dead, and the Rainbow Coalition is shattered. Without Fred Hampton, the coalition struggles. The Young Lords continue for a few more years, but internal conflicts tear them apart. Conflicts that the FBI helps create through infiltration and fake letters. The Brown Berets face the same. By the mid-1970s, the Rainbow Coalition is gone. But what Fred Hampton built in those brief months in 1969, that vision of multiracial working-class unity, that terrified the system more than anything else. Because they knew if poor people ever truly united across racial lines, the game would be over. And that's why they killed him. Now hold on, because what I'm about to show you next proves this wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern, a strategy, a coordinated campaign to destroy every attempt at black and brown unity. And it's still happening today. Let me show you how deep this goes. Fred Hampton and the Rainbow Coalition weren't the only ones building black and brown solidarity in the 1960s and 70s. It was happening everywhere. And everywhere it happened, the system crushed it. Let's start in the fields of California. In 1965, Filipino farm workers in Delano, California, go on strike. They're members of the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, led by Larry Itliong. They're picking grapes for poverty wages. No bathrooms in the fields, no clean drinking water, no breaks, treated like animals. They walk off the fields on September 8, 1965. 8 days later, on September 16th, Mexican and Chicano farm workers join them. These are members of the National Farm Workers Association, led by Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. This is the Delano Grape Strike. Filipinos and Chicanos united. And it's going to last 5 years and change American agriculture forever. But here's what they don't teach you. The strike succeeded because black people supported it. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, the most radical of the black civil rights organizations, sends organizers to support the farm workers. They send resources. They help organize boycotts of California grapes in black communities across the country. Black churches in cities from New York to Chicago to Atlanta tell their congregations don't buy grapes. Support the farm workers. Solidarity. And it works. The grape boycott spreads nationwide. 17 million Americans stop buying grapes. The pressure on the growers becomes unbearable. In 1970, the growers finally give in. They sign union contracts with the United Farm Workers, the new name after the Filipino and Chicano unions merge. It's the biggest victory for agricultural workers in American history. And it happened because of multiracial solidarity. Filipinos, Chicanos, and Black people working together. Cesar Chavez understood this. He marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He studied the nonviolent tactics of the civil rights movement and applied them to farm worker organizing. He built relationships with Black churches and Black organizations. And there's a woman who embodied this unity more than almost anyone: Maria Varela. Maria Varela was a Chicana organizer who worked with SNCC in the Deep South in the early 1960s. She registered Black voters in Mississippi. She risked her life in the most dangerous parts of the Jim Crow South because she understood that the struggle for Black freedom and the struggle for Chicano freedom were the same struggle. In 1967, she attended the National Conference for New Politics in Albuquerque, the conference organized by Reies Tijerina. And she helped bridge the gap between Black power organizations and the Chicano movement. She's one of the unsung heroes of multiracial organizing. Most people have never heard her name, but she spent her life building the connections that the system tried to destroy. Now let's go to Los Angeles, 1968. The Brown Berets are just forming. They're modeled directly on the Black Panthers. They wear brown berets, military-style uniforms. They patrol Chicano neighborhoods to monitor police. They open a free clinic. They organize high school students. On March 1st, 1968, thousands of Chicano high school students in East Los Angeles walk out of school. The East LA walkouts. They're protesting racist education. Schools that track Chicano students into vocational classes instead of college prep. Schools that punish students for speaking Spanish. Schools that teach nothing about Mexican or Chicano history. 10,000 students walk out over the course of a week. It's the largest student protest in Los Angeles history. The Brown Berets help organize it. They provide security. They give speeches. They stand with the students. And the Black Panthers publicly support the walkouts. They send representatives. They issue statements of solidarity. They understand that educational oppression affects both communities. 2 years later, August 29th of 1970, the Chicano Moratorium March happens in LA. It's a massive protest against the Vietnam War. Chicanos are being drafted and killed in Vietnam at rates far higher than their percentage of the population. Just like Black people. Poor Black and brown bodies dying for rich white men's war. 30,000 people march through East Los Angeles. The Brown Berets, the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, community members, families. It's beautiful. Multiracial. Unified. And the Los Angeles Police Department attacks them. They declare it an illegal assembly. They fire tear gas into the crowd. They beat people with batons. They shoot rubber bullets. And in the chaos, they kill Ruben Salazar. Ruben Salazar was a journalist for the Los Angeles Times and the Spanish-language TV station KMX. He was covering the march. He was sitting in a bar taking a break when the police fired a tear gas canister directly into the bar. It hit Ruben Salazar in the head. It killed him instantly. The police claimed it was an accident, but witnesses said the police aimed deliberately. They wanted to kill the journalist covering the Chicano movement. They wanted to silence him. The Chicano community erupted in rage, and the Black community supported them. Joint protests, joint demands for justice, solidarity, because they understood. The police kill us both. The police brutalize us both. We're fighting the same enemy. Let me show you one more example that will blow your mind. September 9th, 1971. Attica Correctional Facility in upstate New York. It's a maximum security prison holding over 2,000 men. 60% are Black. 9% are Puerto Rican. The rest are white, mostly poor whites. The conditions are medieval. Men are allowed 1 shower per week, 1 roll of toilet paper per month. The food is inedible. Medical care is non-existent. Brutality from guards is constant. The prisoners have been asking for reforms for months. Better food, more showers, religious freedom, an end to beatings. The prison administration ignores them. So on September 9th, during morning work, detail the prisoners take over the prison. 1,200 men rebel. They take 40 prison guards hostage. They seize control of D Yard, the exercise yard in the center of the prison, and they issue demands. But here's the incredible part. The prisoners elect a leadership committee, and it's multiracial. Black men, Puerto Rican men, white men, all working together. They ask for outside observers to negotiate with the state. And who do they request? Bobby Seale, the chairman of the Black Panther Party. Representatives from the Young Lords, lawyers, journalists, people they trust. Bobby Seale comes. The Young Lords send people. They sit down with the prisoners and listen to their demands. The prisoners say, we want to be treated like human beings. We want basic dignity. We want amnesty for this rebellion. We want safe passage to a non-imperialist country for those who want to leave America entirely. Think about that last demand. These men, black, brown, and white, are so done with America that they want to leave the country. That's how oppressive the system is. For 4 days, negotiations happen. The observers try to get the state to agree to the demands. But New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller refuses to even come to the prison. He refuses to negotiate. On September 13, 1971, at 9:46 in the morning, Governor Rockefeller orders state troopers to retake the prison by force. Helicopters drop tear gas. Hundreds of state troopers storm D Yard. They fire over 2,000 rounds of ammunition in 6 minutes. They kill 29 prisoners. They kill 10 hostages. That's right. The police killed the hostages they claimed to be rescuing. They shot them rather than let the prisoners win. 89 people are wounded. The troopers then beat and tortured prisoners for hours after the shooting stopped. They forced men to crawl naked through mud and broken glass. They beat them with batons. They burned them with cigarettes. It's the bloodiest prison suppression in United States history. And the multiracial unity of the prisoners terrified the authorities so much that they were willing to murder everyone to break it. The prisoners at Attica proved what Fred Hampton knew, what Reies Tijerina knew. When poor people black, brown, and white unite and fight together, they're unstoppable. And the system will murder you to prevent that unity. Now let me show you exactly how they did it. The mechanisms of suppression, the specific tactics they use to destroy every attempt at solidarity. Because once you see the pattern, you'll recognize it happening right now. The FBI didn't just kill Fred Hampton and call it a day. They had a whole program designed to destroy movements like his. COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program. And when you see what they did, you'll understand that what's happening to movements today is the same playbook. COINTELPRO officially ran from 1956 to 1971. But let's be honest, it never really ended. They just stopped calling it that. The program had different operations targeting different groups. COINTELPRO Communist Party. COINTELPRO Socialist Workers' Party. COINTELPRO New Left targeting anti-war groups. And the one that matters most for our story, COINTELPRO Black nationalist hate groups launched in August 1967. The stated goals, and this is directly from FBI memos that were exposed in 1971, were to prevent the coalition of militant black nationalist groups, prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the black nationalist movement, prevent violence on the part of black nationalist groups, prevent these groups from gaining respectability, and prevent the long-range growth of these organizations, especially among youth. Read that first one again. Prevent the coalition of militant black nationalist groups. They were specifically trying to stop exactly what Fred Hampton was building. Black, brown, and poor white people working together, and their methods were brutal. First, infiltration. We already talked about William O'Neill infiltrating the Panthers and setting up Fred Hampton's assassination. But he wasn't alone. The FBI had informants in every major organization. The Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the Brown Berets, SNCC, the American Indian Movement. These informants did more than just report information. They actively sabotaged from the inside. They started arguments. They accused loyal members of being informants to create paranoia. They pushed for violent actions that would justify police crackdowns. They stole money to make it look like leaders were corrupt. In the New York Black Panther chapter, an informant suggested bombing department stores. The real Panthers rejected the idea, but the informant kept pushing. Eventually, the FBI arrested the Panther 21 on conspiracy charges based on the informant's suggestions. The charges were bogus. All 21 were acquitted in 1971 after spending 2 years in jail. But the damage was done. The legal fees bankrupted the chapter. The paranoia destroyed trust. The Young Lords had informants too. After Fred Hampton's assassination, the FBI intensified efforts to destroy the Rainbow Coalition. They sent informants into the Young Lords to create conflict with the Panthers, to suggest that the Panthers were using the Young Lords to plant seeds of distrust. Second tactic, psychological warfare through fake documents. The FBI was really good at this. They would write letters pretending to be from one organization to another. Letters designed to create conflict. They'd write a letter on Black Panther letterhead insulting the Young Lords and mail it to Young Lords leadership. Then they'd write a letter on Young Lords letterhead insulting the Panthers and mail it to Panther leadership. Both groups would receive insults they thought came from their allies. Trust would erode. The coalition would fracture. They did this everywhere. They sent anonymous letters to Black nationalist leaders, accusing other leaders of sleeping with their wives. They sent letters to wives accusing husbands of infidelity. They sent cartoons mocking leaders to their own members to undermine respect. They sent a letter to the wife of a Chicago gang leader allied with the Panthers, suggesting her husband was having an affair. They wanted to create personal drama that would pull him away from political organizing. This is your government doing this. Using your tax dollars to destroy people trying to feed hungry children and provide free health care. Third tactic, media manipulation. The FBI fed stories to friendly journalists. They had reporters on their payroll or who cooperated willingly. These journalists would write hit pieces on the Panthers, the Young Lords, the Brown Berets, portraying them as violent thugs, criminals, terrorists. After Fred Hampton's assassination, the initial news coverage repeated the police lies. Dangerous gang members shot at police. The police bravely defended themselves. It took independent journalists weeks to expose the truth. By then, the narrative was set in many people's minds. The FBI also leaked information designed to make organizations look bad. They'd leak inflated membership numbers to make groups seem like a threat. Then they'd leak deflated numbers to make them seem irrelevant and weak. Whatever served the moment. Fourth tactic, legal harassment. Constant arrests. The goal wasn't always conviction. The goal was to drain resources. Bobby Seale, chairman of the Black Panther Party, was arrested and tried multiple times between 1968 and 1971. The Chicago 8 trial after the 1968 Democratic National Convention protests. A murder trial in Connecticut. Every trial cost money for lawyers. Every arrest took him away from organizing. Even when he was acquitted, the damage was done. The Young Lords in New York were arrested constantly for the garbage offensive, for the hospital takeover, for protests, for existing while revolutionary, bail money, legal fees, court dates. It adds up. It exhausts people. It bankrupts organizations. Reies Tijerina spent years fighting legal cases. After the Tierra Amarilla courthouse raid, they kept charging him with new crimes. They finally got him convicted of assaulting a federal officer and destroying federal property. He served 2 years in prison from 1969 to 1971. When he got out, the movement had lost momentum. That's the strategy. Lock up the leaders, even temporarily. Break the movement's spine. Fifth tactic, and the most extreme assassination. Fred Hampton was murdered. Mark Clark was murdered. But they weren't the only ones. December 4th, 1969. The same day Fred Hampton was killed in Chicago, the Los Angeles Police Department raided the Los Angeles Black Panther headquarters. 4 hours of gunfire, 5,000 rounds of ammunition fired by police. Miraculously, no Panthers were killed, though several were wounded. This was coordinated. Chicago and LA on the same day. The FBI wanted to decapitate the Black Panther Party in one night. In January 1969, 2 Black Panther leaders in Los Angeles, Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, were shot and killed at UCLA. The FBI had been working to create conflict between the Panthers and another black nationalist group called U.S. Organization, led by Ron Karenga. The FBI sent fake letters to both groups accusing each other of planning violence. The tension exploded into gunfire. 2 Panthers dead. The FBI's fingerprints all over it but hidden. Between 1968 and 1976, 28 Black Panthers were killed by police. Hundreds more were arrested. The leadership was systematically destroyed. The Puerto Rican independence movement faced the same treatment. In Puerto Rico, activists fighting for independence from the United States were surveilled, harassed, arrested, and killed. The connections between the Young Lords and the Puerto Rican independence movement made the Young Lords a target. Now here's what really should make you angry. We only know about COINTELPRO because activists exposed it. March 8, 1971. A group called the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania. They stole thousands of documents, and they leaked them to the press. That's how America found out about COINTELPRO. Not because the government admitted it, because citizens broke the law to expose government crimes. The documents showed everything. The infiltration, the fake letters, the assassination plots, the systematic destruction of the civil rights and Black Power movements. There was a brief scandal, congressional hearings in 1975 and 1976. The Church Committee investigated intelligence abuses. They confirmed COINTELPRO was real. They confirmed it was illegal. They confirmed the FBI violated the constitutional rights of thousands of Americans. And then what happened? A few policies changed, some oversight added. But the FBI was never truly held accountable. Nobody went to jail for murdering Fred Hampton. Nobody went to jail for the illegal surveillance and harassment. The government paid some settlements like the one to Fred Hampton's family and moved on. And the tactics continued. They just became more sophisticated. Today they don't need to send fake letters. They have algorithms that can manipulate what you see on social media. They can amplify division and suppress unity without anyone seeing the hand pulling the strings. They don't need as many informants when they can hack your phone, read your messages, track your location, and monitor your organizing in real time. They don't need to plant evidence when they can use predictive policing algorithms that target black and brown neighborhoods based on biased data. The game is the same. The tools are more advanced. Now let me connect this directly to your life today, because everything I've told you explains why your life is the way it is right now. This isn't just history. This is the blueprint for your present reality. Let's talk about immigration, because this is where the division is most obvious and most cruel today. Right now in 2025, the narrative in politics and media is that Black Americans and Latino immigrants are in competition. The story goes that immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants, take jobs from Black Americans, that they drive down wages, that they drain resources from Black communities, You hear this every election cycle. Politicians pit black voters against Latino voters. They ask, do you support border security or do you support illegal immigration, as if those are the only options? And some black people believe it. Some black people think immigrants are the problem, just like some Latino people distance themselves from blackness, trying to achieve model minority status, trying to be seen as hard-working immigrants, unlike those lazy black people on welfare. This is exactly what the system wants. This division, this resentment. Because united black and brown working class people are unstoppable. Divided, you fight each other, while billionaires rob you both. Here's the truth. Immigration enforcement is the modern version of the police brutality that Fred Hampton and the Young Lords fought together. ICE immigration and customs enforcement targets Latino communities, the same way police target black communities. Racial profiling, stop and frisk, harassment, family separation, detention camps that are modern concentration camps where children are kept in cages. But here's what they don't tell you. ICE doesn't just target Latino immigrants. They target black immigrants too. Haitians, Africans, Caribbean people. Black immigrants are deported at high rates. Black immigrants are detained. Black immigrants face the same terror. So when ICE raids a neighborhood, they're not just terrorizing Latinos. They're terrorizing black people too. And when police brutalize communities, they brutalize both. The same police departments that kill unarmed black men kill unarmed Latino men. The same prosecutors that send black people to prison send Latino people to prison. Think about it. When they killed George Floyd in Minneapolis on May 25, 2020, who came out to protest everybody. Black people, brown people, white people, Asian people. The whole world marched because we all saw the same enemy. Police violence, state violence, racism. But then what happened? The media and politicians started dividing people again, pushing narratives about looting, about outside agitators, about black versus Latino neighborhoods, about immigrants versus citizens, breaking the coalition before it could become dangerous. Fred Hampton would recognize this immediately. He'd say, "Look, the police kill all of us. They kill black people. They kill Latinos. They kill Native Americans. They kill poor white people. We're all facing the same violence. We need to organize together." And he'd say, "Don't blame immigrants for low wages. Blame the corporations that pay poverty wages to everyone, and use immigration status to threaten workers who try to organize unions. Blame the system that benefits from having a desperate, deportable workforce that can't fight back. The real enemy isn't the immigrant picking vegetables for $3 an hour in California. The real enemy is the agricultural corporation making billions while paying starvation wages to workers of all backgrounds. The real enemy isn't the Latino family living in your neighborhood. The real enemy is the gentrification pushing both black and Latino families out, so wealthy white people can move in. Let's talk about that. Gentrification. Right now, historic black neighborhoods are being gentrified across America. Harlem in New York, Bronzeville in Chicago, Watts in Los Angeles. Black families who lived in these neighborhoods for generations are being priced out. Rents skyrocketing, property taxes increasing, longtime businesses closing, replaced by artisanal coffee shops and boutique gyms. Where do those black families go? Often to neighborhoods that were historically Latino. And sometimes there's tension. Sometimes Latino residents resent the demographic change. Sometimes black people moving in feel unwelcome. But who's creating this? Not each other. Developers, real estate investors, city policies, tax increment financing districts that subsidize luxury development while cutting services to poor neighborhoods, zoning changes that allow high-rise condos in formerly low-rise neighborhoods, The same thing is happening to Latino neighborhoods. East LA, the Mission District in San Francisco, Pilsen in Chicago. Latino families being pushed out, displaced. Different neighborhoods, same playbook. And sometimes the media frames it as Black people gentrifying Latino neighborhoods, or Latinos gentrifying Black neighborhoods, turning working-class people against each other. But the truth is, developers are gentrifying everybody. Wealthy outsiders, mostly white, are displacing both Black and brown communities. And if Black and brown people fought that together, organized, together, demanded affordable housing, together, demanded community control over development, together, they could win. Fred Hampton understood this. That's why the Rainbow Coalition fought for housing together. That's why they protested evictions in Black, Puerto Rican, and white neighborhoods. Because the slumlord exploiting people in Lawndale is the same type of slumlord exploiting people in Humboldt Park. Same enemy, same fight. Now let's talk about the prison system, because this is where the coalition is most obvious and most urgent. Mass incarceration is modern slavery. The 13th Amendment passed in 1865 abolished slavery, except as punishment for crime. That exception has been exploited for 160 years to re-enslave Black people, and now brown people too. The numbers are stark. Black people are 13% of the US population, but 40% of the prison population. Latinos are 19% of the population, but 23% of prisoners. Combined Black and Latino people are 63% of people behind bars, almost 2/3. In a country that's only 32% Black and Latino, combined in the free population. This is not an accident. This is policy. The war on drugs launched by Nixon in 1971, right after COINTELPRO was exposed, and right after Fred Hampton was killed. Coincidence numbered. They needed a new way to control and suppress Black and brown communities. Mass incarceration became the tool. Mandatory minimum sentences, 3 strikes laws, cash bail that keeps poor people in jail before trial, public defenders overwhelmed with cases, plea bargains that coerce people into admitting guilt, private prisons that profit from human cages. All of it targets Black and brown people. All of it feeds the same system. And inside prisons, just like at Attica in 1971, Black and brown prisoners often realize they're fighting the same fight. Prison organizing frequently crosses racial lines. Strikes, hunger strikes, legal challenges. Prisoners united demanding human treatment. And just like at Attica, the authorities crush that unity with violence and isolation. Solitary confinement, transfers, pitting gangs against each other. Anything to prevent solidarity. Outside the walls, families are devastated. Black children growing up without fathers. Latino children growing up without fathers. Communities hollowed out. And sometimes those communities blame each other instead of the system that's caging their men. If Black and brown communities organized together against mass incarceration, demanded an end to the war on drugs, demanded prison abolition, or at least radical reform, demanded the 13th Amendment be fully amended to remove the slavery. Exception, the system would have to respond. But divided fighting each other, the system continues. Let me hit you with the economic reality, the wealth gap, because this is where the theft becomes undeniable. Median white household wealth in America right now is about $188,000. Median Black household wealth is about $24,000. Median Latino household wealth is about $36,000. Black and Latino families have a fraction of the wealth that white families have. And people are told, well, that's because Black and brown people don't work hard enough, don't save enough, don't make good choices. That's a lie. A vicious, cruel lie. The wealth gap exists because of systematic theft over centuries. Slavery stole labor from black people for 250 years. After slavery, Jim Crow, sharecropping, convict, leasing, redlining, urban renewal all stole wealth from black communities. Every time black people built wealth, it was destroyed. Tulsa, 1921. Rosewood, 1923. Hundreds of other massacres and displacements. We've covered this in other videos, but it bears repeating. Black Wall Street in Tulsa had more millionaires per capita than most American cities. Then a white mob burned it down, 300 people murdered, 35 city blocks destroyed, and insurance companies refused to pay claims. The city changed zoning laws so black people couldn't rebuild. Wealth erased in one night. Now look at Latino communities. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 stole half of Mexico's territory. Millions of acres of land grants that belonged to Mexican families were stolen through fraud and violence over the next century. That's generational wealth stolen. The Bracero program from 1942 to 1964 brought millions of Mexican workers to the U.S. to work on farms and railroads. The U.S. government and employers were supposed to put 10% of their wages into savings accounts that the workers would get when they returned to Mexico. But most of that money was never paid. Estimates say millions of dollars, maybe billions, adjusted for inflation, were stolen from Bracero workers. Many died never receiving what they were owed. So both black and Latino communities have had wealth systematically stolen. Different mechanisms, same theft. Same thieves, the U.S. government and white capitalists. And the solution, reparations for black Americans. Land back and compensation for Chicano and indigenous communities. Economic justice for everyone who's been robbed. But here's the thing. If black and brown communities demanded this together, it would be much harder to deny. If there was a unified movement saying you stole from all of us, you owe all of us, the moral and political case becomes overwhelming. But divided, being told to compete for scraps, the demands are weaker. Reies Tijerina understood this in 1967. He said, "They stole our land. They stole your labor. Same thief, same crime. We should demand justice together." Fred Hampton understood this in 1969. He said, "We're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism. We're going to fight it with socialism. Economic systems that serve working people of all races." They were building the coalition that could actually win. That's why they were killed and suppressed. And that's why you're taught to see each other as enemies instead of allies. So what do you do with this information? How do you live differently, knowing what you know? Now, in 1902, Texas passed a poll tax requiring voters to pay fees equivalent to a full day's wage. In 2011, Texas passed a voter ID law requiring government-issued photo identification to vote. Same strategy, different century, same goal. Keep poor people and people of color away from the ballot box. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote in her dissent, when the Supreme Court upheld Texas voter ID law in 2014, that it likely imposes an unconstitutional poll tax and could disenfranchise 600,000 voters, mostly black and Latino. 600,000. In 2014, not 1890. 2014. Poll taxes were supposedly banned in 1964 with the 24th Amendment. But voter ID laws require paying for birth certificates, driver's licenses, passports. Those cost money. Sometimes a lot of money. And they disproportionately burden poor communities who can't afford the fees or can't take time off work to go to government offices that are only open during business hours. That's a poll tax with extra steps. That's a poll tax with better marketing. Texas also banned interpreters at polling places, making it harder for Spanish-speaking citizens to vote. English-only ballots. Reduced polling locations in Latino neighborhoods, forcing people to travel miles. Strict mail and ballot requirements. Purging voter rolls of people with Hispanic surnames, claiming they're not citizens. Layer after layer of barriers. It's Jim Crow 2.0. Same tactics wrapped in legal language. Same discrimination disguised as election integrity. Same goal. Suppress non-white votes. Keep power in white hands. And it's working. In the 2018 midterm elections, Texas had the lowest voter turnout in the entire nation, largely due to voter suppression laws targeting Black and Latino communities. Jim Crow didn't end with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It evolved, from poll taxes to voter ID, from literacy tests to voter roll purges, from violence and intimidation to bureaucracy and paperwork. But the goal remains identical. Keep people of color away from political power. Now, look at immigration enforcement. The Chinese Exclusion Act banned Chinese immigration for 61 years, from 1882 to 1943. Today, we have travel bans targeting Muslims from certain countries. We have zero-tolerance policies separating families at the border. We have mass deportation raids in Latino communities. Different targets. Same exclusion. Same dehumanization. ICE raids in Latino neighborhoods today mirror the deportation raids of the 1930s Mexican repatriation program. During the Great Depression, federal and local governments forcibly removed over 1 million people of Mexican descent to Mexico. Over 60% were American citizens. Born here. Legal citizens. Didn't matter. They looked Mexican. They were deported anyway. Entire families rounded up, given hours to pack, put on trains, dumped across the border in a country many had never even visited. The same thing is happening now. ICE raids targeting workers, families separated, children put in detention centers that look exactly like the internment camps we put Japanese families in. Chain link cages, concrete floors, Mylar blankets. Kids separated from parents for months. Trauma that will last generations. Family separation at the border echoes Japanese internment. Children torn from parents, held in camps, traumatized for life. They claim it's about immigration law, it's about deterrence, it's about border security. But look deeper. It's about terrorizing communities. It's about making brown people afraid. It's about sending a message. You are not welcome here. You never will be. English-only policies in schools and government offices today replicate the Americanization programs that forced Mexican and Asian children to abandon their languages and cultures in the early 1900s. They punished kids for speaking Spanish at school. They changed their names to sound more American. They taught them to be ashamed of their heritage. And now politicians push English-only laws claiming it promotes unity. It's the same cultural genocide, just rebranded. Build the wall rhetoric dehumanizes Latino immigrants the exact same way Chinese immigrants were called yellow peril invaders in the 1880s. Disease carriers, job stealers, criminals, rapists. Threats to American values and American jobs. It's identical propaganda. Just find and replace the ethnicity. This isn't new. This is the same xenophobia, the same scapegoating, the same economic anxiety weaponized against people of color, while the real villains, the corporations and billionaires, extracting all the wealth, laugh all the way to the bank. In the 1880s, white workers blamed Chinese immigrants for low wages, even though white business owners set those wages. Today, white workers blame undocumented immigrants for job losses, even though corporations offshore millions of jobs for profit. The enemy isn't immigrants. The enemy is the system that pits working-class people against each other, while the wealthy extract all the value of everyone's labor. But they'll never teach you that in school. They need you divided. They need you blaming each other. Because if Black, Latino, Asian, and white working-class people ever united and demanded fair wages, affordable housing, quality health care, and justice, The system would collapse overnight, so they keep you fighting over crumbs while they feast. And then there's the model minority myth. They call Asian Americans the model minority. Hardworking, high-achieving, quiet, obedient. Proof that racism isn't real. Proof that anyone can succeed in America if they just work hard enough like Asians do. It sounds like a compliment. It's actually a weapon designed to divide. First, the model minority myth erases violence. It erases Chinese exclusion. It erases Japanese internment. It erases anti-Asian hate crimes that spiked 300% during COVID-19 when politicians blame China for the virus. It pretends Asians are accepted. They're not. They're tolerated when useful and scapegoated when convenient. Second, it ignores selection bias. The 1965 Immigration Act prioritized highly educated professionals from Asia. Doctors, engineers, scientists. Of course, their children have high educational attainment. Their parents were already educated elites before they came here. That's not Asian culture. That's immigration policy selecting for people with advanced degrees. Southeast Asian refugees, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laotian, Hmong communities who came here fleeing war, they face poverty rates comparable to Black and Latino communities. But they're invisible in the model minority narrative. Third, the model minority myth is weaponized against Black and Latino communities. Why can't you be like Asians? Its code for your poverty is your fault. It ignores centuries of wealth, theft through slavery, lynching, land seizures, redlining, mass incarceration. It ignores that Asian immigrants who came after 1965 didn't face the same generational wealth destruction that Black and Latino families faced. Fourth, it harms Asian Americans by erasing their real struggles. Mental health crises, discrimination in hiring and promotion, hate crimes, being treated as perpetual foreigners, no matter how many generations their family has been here. The model minority myth makes all of that invisible. The model minority myth isn't a compliment. It's a wedge. It's a tool to divide communities of color and justify systemic inequality. It tells Asians you're one of the good ones, as long as you stay quiet and don't make trouble. It tells Black and Latino communities, see, they made it. Why can't you? It creates resentment between groups who should be united. Asian Americans aren't the enemy. Latino immigrants aren't the enemy. Black Americans aren't the enemy. The system that profits from division, that hoards wealth while communities suffer, that writes laws to protect power, that's the enemy. And the only way to defeat it is solidarity. Real solidarity. Multiracial. Multi-ethnic. United. And that brings me to the most important part of this entire video. This isn't just about knowing history. This is about reclaiming your identity. This is about understanding who you really are. You are not victims. You are not minorities. You are not begging for scraps from a table you built. You are descendants of warriors. You are descendants of Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez, who mortgaged their farm, who faced death threats, who sued the federal government and won. You are descendants of Wong Kim Ark, who fought all the way to the Supreme Court to protect birthright citizenship for every immigrant child in America. You are descendants of Japanese families who survived concentration camps, who returned to burned farms, who rebuilt their lives from ashes with nothing but determination. You are descendants of Mexican farm workers who organized the United Farm Workers under Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, who fought corporations and won labor rights that protect all workers today. Your poverty isn't your fault. It was stolen. Your land was seized through alien land laws. Your wages were suppressed through anti-union violence. Your education was sabotaged through segregated schools with broken windows and outdated books. Your voting rights were taken through poll taxes and literacy tests, and now voter ID laws. Your wealth was destroyed systematically, legally, deliberately. You were never less than. You were always dangerous. Dangerous because you succeed despite every barrier they build. Dangerous because you organize across racial lines. Dangerous because you refuse to accept oppression as permanent. Dangerous because you remember. That's why they segregated you. That's why they banned you from citizenship. That's why they stole your land. That's why they erased your victories from history. Because if Black, Latino, Asian, and Indigenous people realized their collective power, if you stopped fighting each other and fought the system together, the game would be over. They would lose, you would win. You are not minorities. You are the majority. Globally, people of color are the majority. In America's future, people of color are the majority. In the fight for justice, people of color have always been the majority. Walk in that power. Speak with that authority. Demand with that confidence. Your ancestors were warriors who built empires. Chinese immigrants built the Transcontinental Railroad, the backbone of American industry, while being paid half the wages of white workers and facing daily violence. Japanese families turned California deserts into fertile farmland, producing 40% of the state's vegetables on 1% of its land, until white America stole it. Mexican farm workers fed America for generations, while being paid starvation wages, then organized the largest agricultural labor movement in American history, and won. Filipino workers formed the first multiracial labor unions in the 1930s, striking alongside Mexican workers against exploitative growers, and they won. Your ancestors did all this while facing terrorism, lynch mobs in the night, deportation without trial, legal exclusion from citizenship, state-sanctioned violence. And they didn't just survive. They fought back. They organized. They resisted. They won victories. Gonzalo Mendez risked everything, his farm, his safety, his family's future, and he won a case that changed American history. That strength is in your DNA. That resilience is your inheritance. That defiance is your legacy. When you struggle to pay rent, remember, your great-grandparents lost farms worth millions through alien land laws. You should own property. It was stolen. When you face discrimination at work or school, remember your grandparents faced segregation, exclusion, and violence, and they fought back. You carry their warrior spirit. When someone tells you to go back where you came from, remember your ancestors built this country. The railroads, the farms, the infrastructure, the wealth. This land is as much yours as anyone's, more because you actually built it with your hands. You are not immigrants to justice. You are the architects of justice. This country owes you, not favors, not charity, reparations, return of stolen wealth, restoration of stolen land, acknowledgement of stolen history. And here's the divine truth that they don't want you to understand. Why did God bring your families through exclusion, through internment, through deportation, through lynching? Not by accident, not by luck, by divine purpose. You are here to finish what the Mendez family started, to demand what was stolen, to expose what was hidden, to unite what they tried to divide. God preserved you through the Chinese Exclusion Act. Why? So you could fight the Muslim ban, the border wall, the deportations. Because exclusion is exclusion, no matter who it targets. God brought you through Japanese internment. Why? So you could fight family separation at the border, police violence, mass incarceration. Because concentration camps are concentration camps, no matter what name you use. God sustained you through Mexican segregation. Why? So you could fight English, only laws, voter suppression, educational inequity. Because Jim Crow is Jim Crow, no matter who it crushes. This is your mission. Build bridges, not walls. Organize across racial lines like the Mendez Coalition did. Mexican families, Puerto Rican families, Japanese American allies, Jewish lawyers, Black civil rights organizations, filing amicus briefs. That's how Mendez won. That's how Brown won. That's how every civil rights victory was won. Not by division, by solidarity. The system wants you fighting each other. Latinos versus Black Americans over jobs. Asian Americans versus everyone over college admissions. Immigrants versus native-born over resources. But the truth is, there's enough for everyone. The problem isn't scarcity, it's theft. Billionaires hoarding wealth they could never spend in 1,000 lifetimes. Corporations exploiting workers and paying starvation wages. Politicians serving donors instead of communities. Your ancestors knew this. That's why Filipino and Mexican farm workers organized together. That's why Japanese American organizations filed legal briefs supporting Mendez. That's why Thurgood Marshall built on the Mendez legal precedent. They understood that an injury to one is an injury to all. That justice for one requires justice for all. That's your assignment now. Learn all the histories, not just your own. Support all the struggles, not just your communities. Build all the coalitions. Because divided, you're weak. United, you're unstoppable. If this truth shocked you, if this changed how you see American history, comment. Mendez below. If you never learned that Mexicans and Asians fought Jim Crow alongside Black Americans, comment erased. If you're ready for the full story, not the sanitized version they taught in school, hit that like button right now. Share this with your family, your church, your community, because they're not teaching this in schools. They're still erasing it, still dividing you, still pretending racism was only black and white. You are the historian now. You are the teacher now. You are the truth keeper now. Don't let them erase this again. Subscribe to this channel because we're exposing hundreds more buried stories. The Filipino farm workers who struck alongside Cesar Chavez, the Puerto Rican activists who demanded voting rights, the indigenous leaders who resisted genocide for 5 centuries, the Chinese laborers who built America's infrastructure, the Japanese families who fought legal battles for citizenship, the Mexican revolutionaries who inspired labor movements. Tell your children about Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez. Tell them about Wong Kim Ark. Tell them about the Japanese families who survived internment. Tell them about Mexican workers who organized and won. Because if you don't, the schools won't. The textbooks won't. The system that buried this history for 70 years won't suddenly resurrect it. This is our history. We must preserve it. This isn't revenge. It's truth and justice. This isn't division. It's solidarity. This isn't the past. It's the present. Because Jim Crow never died. It evolved. From poll taxes to voter ID. From lynching to police violence. From internment to ICE detention. From Mexican schools to underfunded schools. Same system. Same tactics. Same oppression. You are part of this story. Your family lived this. Your ancestors fought this. And you will finish this. Like, comment, subscribe, and share right now. Let's build a multiracial army of truth-tellers. 100,000 strong. 1 million strong. Until every American knows the full story. Until every stolen history is restored. Until every community stands together. Are you ready? Show me in the comments right now. Let me pray with you. Father God, we come before you with grateful hearts. We thank you for the warriors who came before us. For Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez, who risked everything for justice and won. For Wong Kim Ark, who fought to the Supreme Court to protect citizenship for all immigrant children. For Japanese families who survived concentration camps and rebuilt with nothing but faith and determination. For Mexican workers who organized despite violence and won dignity. For every unnamed ancestor who resisted, who fought, who refused to accept oppression as permanent. We thank you for preserving this truth when they tried to erase it. We thank you for this moment right now where truth is being revealed and lies are being shattered. We pray for justice, real justice, not empty apologies but reparations, restoration of stolen land, return of stolen wealth, acknowledgement of stolen history. We pray for every person watching this video. Give them courage to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. Give them strength to build solidarity even when the system tries to divide them. Give them wisdom to reject the lies they were taught and embrace the truth that sets them free. We pray for awakening across every community. Black, Latino, Asian, Indigenous, and yes, even white allies who choose justice over privilege. Unite us, Father. Empower us. Make us dangerous to every lie. Make us unstoppable in pursuit of justice. We pray for today's fights against voter suppression that echoes poll taxes, against immigrant detention that echoes internment camps, against police violence that echoes lynch mobs, against educational inequity that echoes segregation. Give us the spirit of the Mendez family, bold, uncompromising, willing to risk everything for the next generation, until every stolen right is restored, until every erased story is remembered, until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like an everlasting stream, until your kingdom comes and your will is done on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name, who said the truth will set you free. And we receive that freedom today. We walk in that truth today. We demand that justice today. Amen. Mendez versus Westminster proved the fight for justice was never just black and white. It was multiracial from the very beginning. They erased it to divide you. They lied to control you. They rewrote history to protect the system. But now you know. And knowledge is power. Walk in that truth. Build that solidarity. Demand that justice. Jim Crow didn't die in 1965. It evolved. From poll taxes to voter ID, from lynching to police brutality, from internment to ICE detention, from Mexican schools to underfunded schools. Same system wearing different masks, same fight across generations. Your ancestors fought it with everything they had. Now you will finish it. God bless you. Stay united. Stay truthful. Stay free.